Hello underwater friends, in this video I'm gonna give you the settings I use for my camera when I film underwater. And actually, they work for any camera. Oh, by the way, Bali is reopened, so don't hesitate to come visit us at Plouf Diving. Link in the description. Okay, first the image size. The image size, I recommend you to use 4K. Most of the videos right now on YouTube or for your friends will use Full HD. But if you use 4K, you will have your videos ready for the future and you can still use them in many years. Also, you'll be able to crop in your picture. So for example, if you do macro and you have an animal that is too small to fill up the frame, you can crop it 4 times and have it very small and see things that you wouldn't see with your eyes otherwise. For the frames per second, I recommend you to use 24. That's what is the most cinematic. And like this, you will have motion blur. But if you want, you can use a higher frame rate, like 60 or 100, 120, depending on what you can do with your camera. Like this, you'll be able to do very nice slow motion. For the speed have to be 1 over twice the frame rate. So if you do 24 frames per second, it should be 1 over 50. For the aperture, it really depends on what effect I want to give to the picture. If I do macro, many times I will have a small aperture, like a small number, like this with an f1.8 or f2.8, I will have most of the picture that is going to be blurry with a nice bokeh. So the subject is going to be very sharp, but the rest is going to be blurry. So even if the background is not the greatest, then it will be blurry, so it will look nice. If I do wide angle, at the opposite, I will try to have a big f number. Like this, most of the picture is going to be sharp. So like this, it's going to make it much easier for my camera to do the focus and to have my subject fully in focus. A shark that would have only the eye sharp wouldn't be so nice. So you want most of the picture to be sharp. For the ISO, it will really depend on the luminosity of the day, on the lights I'm using and everything. So this is really the one I adjust depending on the conditions. If I do macro, I bring my lights, so the ISO can be quite small, but if I'm doing wide angle and also I'm using a big F number, most of the time I will have to have an ISO higher, maybe 400, 800. Be careful, some cameras are not so good for noise, and if the ISO is too big, it's gonna be very noisy. So you have to adjust and find the good balance. For the white balance, if I'm doing macro, I used the white balance, actually the temperature of my light. My light are about 5000 Kelvin. I'm gonna put 5000 Kelvin for the white balance. If I'm doing wide angle, most of the time I will rely on the auto white balance or the underwater white balance of my camera. Like this, it's gonna adjust depending on the conditions and I won't need to correct it by myself. For the focus zone, I will use the flexible point if I do macro, meaning I decide one small point and I point it, for example, on the eye of the shrimp or whatever. And like this, I really pick where I want it to be sharp. When I'm doing wide angle, I use a zone, wide or not, to have more points to pick the focus and make it easier for my camera. For the autofocus or manual focus, I will use manual focus for my macro, even though it works quite well with autofocus, because the subject is normally not moving too much. So I can adjust the focus and leave it like this for the rest of the shot. If I'm shooting animals that are moving more, then it might be better to use autofocus, and nowadays the focus are quite good and I can really rely on it. I hope this video was useful, and if you made great videos using my advice, don't hesitate to give me a link or tell me where to find them. Also, if you want, there is up there a video to help you to edit your videos. Bye bye, happy bubbles!